Well, hello and welcome to the Profit Express. I'm Tim Healy. I'm inviting you to join me each and every Wednesday so you can be prepared to win the battle for business. That's right. Now, hey, thanks for sharing some of your time with me today, for being on board the Profit Express, and of course, a big thanks to our good friends and sponsors at Corbett Public Relations, where they've been promoting and protecting businesses and brands for over 30 years. So do yourself a favor. Visit Bill and his team at CorbettPR.com. That's CorbettPR.com. Welcome aboard, everybody. Now, I want to give you a little bit of a background, a little bit of a story as to how I came in contact with today's guest. His name is Michael Wright, and he's a local realtor with Douglas Elliman here on Long Island. And he started following, the show on Instagram, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 months ago. And he had commented on one of the shows. So it caught my attention. I thanked him. And I don't always do it, but then I decided to follow him back. And I've been following Michael, his posts, his story for, again, it's probably about 6 or so months. And it really has been getting my attention more and more of late. And that's obviously why I'm having him on the show. But why am I having him on the show? Because he's a real estate agent? No, there's plenty of real estate agents out there. But there's 3 things that I have observed very distinctly about who he is, how he does business, how he communicates, and he shares it all on Instagram. So the first thing that I've noticed about Michael is he's very honest about who he is. You can see that in his posts, his videos, all on Instagram. His story, again, that he shares personally and professionally, is very relatable. Again, I really didn't know this guy. I heard of him. I know other agents at, Douglas Elliman, but, my only connection was Instagram. And he is holding himself accountable for the world to see, again, on Instagram, with personal and professional goals. And I admire the hell out of that because, and it's something I've talked about on the show, something that I've struggled with, being vulnerable, letting it all out. And so that's really why I think, for me, Michael caught my attention. And in part of his story that he's been talking about and he's been sharing is the impact that real estate and moving to new homes has had on him and his family. And each time he's moved, there's been, a transformative change that he's just so genuine and passionate about. And he has created this business goal. It's called Beyond 40, where his mission is to help 40 people this year realize their dreams through the power of real estate. And again, as I'm following him, as I'm seeing more of his posts, I am learning from him. I am, quite frankly, I'm impressed as to how he does it. Again, he's being honest. He's sharing his story. He's holding himself accountable. Not a lot of people want to do that. But that is part of what social media is. That's part of the power of it. And you know what? You can't help but, like this guy. Certainly when you see him on the show today, I know you're going to like him. You're going to start following him, of course, on social media and Instagram. And that's why I want to share, who he is. He's a business guy. He's a hustler. He's an entrepreneur. He's out there like so many of us are. And I know that when he's sharing his story, it's going to be the kind of story that when you're listening today, you're going to get a nugget, an idea, an inspiration. It's going to help you win the battle for business. And that's what it's all about here on the Profit Express. So, hey, it's a pleasure to welcome aboard the Profit Express, Michael Wright, Douglas Elliman Real Estate. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing really well. Actually, I don't want to say anything because it might just completely negate or take down that introduction. That was phenomenal and humbling. Thanks so much, Tim.
Listen, the one thing here, I speak the truth. We connect. You reached out to me. You started following me. You commented on the show. We connected, and I just started seeing your content. And I'm just sharing, what I've seen. And anybody who's going to start following you, after today, will see what I've seen. So that's why you're here.
I really appreciate that.
But it's not just the state of real estate, the market. I really don't care about that so much. But how you talk about real estate and how it's changed your life. So let's start exactly with that. How
Sure.
has real estate changed the lives of you and your family?
Um, so I guess it's best to go in chronological order. My wife
Hmm.
and I, she was my girlfriend at the time. We started dating. We both grew up in New Jersey. I had a
Hmm.
job opportunity prior to getting my real estate license that brought us from New Jersey out to Long Island. So we rented a one-bedroom condo in Patchogue, sort of before, just as the Patchogue Renaissance was taking hold.
Yeah.
Um, in the move to Patchogue, in this modest one-bedroom condo, we were on the Patchogue River. We've never lived close to water before in our lives, but we absolutely fell in love with it. While we were there, we got engaged. She began a career on Broadway, and I began my career in real estate. Her career on Broadway as a stagehand actually then provided us the opportunity, but also the motivation to purchase a house in Freeport to reduce her commute. And we were so passionate about living on the water, we found a phenomenal value of a on a waterfront home in Freeport. While there, we bought a boat, we got a dog, we got married, um, we had our first son, and it was awesome. Like we
Right.
really truly enjoyed our time there. We met some great neighbors,
Right.
made some phenomenal friendships, and just actually this past, well, not this past June, but June 2022, we decided to sell that house because the market was just absolutely on fire. I could see the interest rates were about to start rising, and I thought it was a good idea to sort of capture that equity.
Hmm.
And we've since moved to East Meadow. And the move to East Meadow, I think, was actually the most transformational. Um, it brought along the birth of our second son, and away from maybe the distractions of making our first house as perfect as it could be, away from the distraction of having the boat in the backyard, and the friends that we made in
Right.
this new environment. I started looking inward
Hmm.
and really trying to understand who I was and who I wanted to be. And at this time last year, I realized and this is not something we had spoken about earlier. I realized I really wasn't that happy of a person. If you asked me, are you happy? I would have said absolutely. Like, I have this great life and I live on Long Island and I'm
Yeah.
married and I have two kids.
Yeah.
But it was really my day started with stress, feeling like I was behind the eight ball. I would wake up, not late in like general terms, but I felt like I was waking up late for the expectation of what I wanted to accomplish that day, and
Mm.
that I was always behind the goals and I was racing the clock and everything was a time crunch, and I would start my day looking for what was going wrong or what could go wrong, and then try to prevent that before it happened. And it just wasn't a joyful or fulfilling experience.
Right.
So from that point to where I am now, I feel like was, as I sort of mentioned earlier, just a complete transformation.
So this is interesting, I'm sure you're well aware of that. I've certainly come across the fact that for most people, purchasing a home, moving is one of the most stressful things in life. And so, what sounds like a short period of time, from what was it, Patchogue, Freeport, now to East Meadow, you've had three moves and a whole lot of life in between. And
Yeah.
it's funny how you share that. And again, listen, you're being relatable and vulnerable here on the show. When you ask people in general, hey, are you happy? Everybody has a knee jerk reaction. Oh yeah, life's great, everything's good. Um, but you were just being honest with yourself, and I think it's a good thing that you were realizing that, hey, I wasn't happy. Um, so when you had that realization, then, because that's going to impact you personally and professionally, what
hmm
happened? What did you do at that moment?
So actually, I went back in my early 20s. I recognized the help that a mental coach or a therapist, counselor had on my life, a
Mm-hmm.
positive impact. And I said, you know, I went to a counselor. I actually couldn't stop driving fast. I just drove fast wherever I went. And that was sort of getting me into some trouble that I didn't want to be in. So, so that helped. But I also recognized that seeing the counselor improved all of the other aspects of my life. And then I got to a point where I was like, wow, everything's pretty good. I don't need this anymore. I'll be fine on my own. And that was probably the furthest thing from the truth because, you know, that led me to where I am right now or where I was. And I thought that that was probably the most responsible starting point again, to
Mm-hmm.
go see a therapist, kind of get out what was in my head and figure out a path forward. So I started that in August of last year, and I can kind of continue on my journey, but I don't know if I've answered
Yeah,
that
no.
specific
It's
question.
we're just chatting here. So, all right. So, a big change, maybe the sea change for you was kind of going back to a therapist, a counselor, if you will, getting some clarity there. Um, and again, it was funny. Hey, I guess while we're sharing, I dealt with it myself and anxiety. At the birth of my first son. And I never understood therapy before that. I always had that kind of, tough veneer, shrunk veneer. I don't need that help. But I'll tell you one
Yeah, it
thing.
was like, what, that's what I have friends for, right? Like, why do I
Yeah,
need to go talk to someone who I don't know and
right.
share these things? And then, you know, but the positive impact that it has and the tools and the ways of looking at things, um, is, when you get the right one,
Sure.
it makes a tremendous impact.
Yeah. And 'cause I know for, speaking for guys, I think a lot of us might have that, that masculine macho thing, oh, we don't need help. And, like you said, I can talk to my friends or my brother or whomever. But getting that objective opinion, that objective point of view, professional point of view can be powerful. Um, so, all right, you're at a point now where you've made a lot of changes. Real estate has been a theme throughout your life for you and your family so far. And, you know, the backdrop of, right here, just watching you right now is, you've got your whiteboard, okay? And you've got,
Mhm.
here, Mike, go to the screen, Mike. I'm talking to my engineer now. There you go. Thanks, buddy. So I love it. It says real estate the right way. Obviously, your last name is Michael Wright. And one thing that you talk a lot about on, on social and your Instagram feed is the Beyond 40 mission. And you have some of it written right behind you, which I love. Great backdrop, by the way. I like it better than my two
Thanks.
ferns. I mean, you got a better backdrop than me.
I love the two ferns, by the way, though. I mean, that's
I don't know if I'm
very
going to get in
catchy.
trouble with that
I need to put
Galifianakis
some
guy.
greenery around here, I think.
A little greenery could help. A little greenery could help. So, all right. So, take us to, what's the story behind the Beyond 40 mission?
So I recognized. All right, let's start over. I turned 40 this year,
Mm-hmm.
and in my sort of self-reflection, I recognized the story that we told to open the interview about every time I moved, my life significantly changed and for the better. And then I started looking at the lives of my clients, and the sort of the same story holds true. So I wanted to set a goal that was both realistic, attainable, but really a stretch for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of my, I'll call them virtual mentors, David Meltzer,
Mm-hmm.
likes to have like a limitless belief and a sense of abundance. So just putting the number 40 on it, wasn't aligned with that. So I put at least 40. So I'd like to help at least 40 people change their lives through real estate from the time I turned 40 to the time I turned 41, which, in case anyone's counting, is July 1st.
Okay, so you just turned 40. You have the goal of getting 40 people into new homes within 1 year. Okay,
Correct.
is this now? Again, this is the Profit Express. My head goes to sales and goals and metrics. Is it
Hmm.
when you hit? Now, I didn't say if. Okay, all right. When
Thank
you
you.
hit 40
Yeah.
plus, okay, will that be your best year in the career?
Uh, by far.
By far. Awesome. Okay. By how many roughly? What would be the split?
So my best year so far has been 29 closed transactions.
All right, it's not too shabby. It sounds like it's a good year, 29. That's not bad at all.
Yeah.
That's more than
Thanks.
2 a month. Okay. All right, so it's 40 plus. All right, now I'm gonna let. You said each time we went, from one home to the next, Patchogue, Freeport, East Meadow, the life for myself and my family improved. So
Mhm.
now, and now you sell just residential, right?
Correct.
Okay. Let me ask you this. So I'm imagining you get to know your clients pretty well, whether it's an individual, it's a young couple, a retired couple, a family, what have you. So, listen, you're in sales, they come to you, you qualify them, what are you looking for? I mean, I'm not just talking about, budget and all that stuff, but, what kind of a home, where, and all that. Given your vision of what real estate means, how it has impacted you, have you ever, or would you, like if you had a family, young kids, whatever, and they wanted to get this particular house and you felt that it wasn't right for them, that they wouldn't be happy, would you say something?
So that's a tough question to answer, but I guess the simple way to answer that is yes. My job isn't, though, to tell people what home they should or shouldn't have.
Right.
And, I want to be cognizant of the way that I answer this question because there are different ways and different reasons why someone would be happy and not happy in a home.
Right. Right.
For instance, if someone has a small kid and they're looking at a house on a busy road because they prefer a larger interior space
Mm-hmm.
and maybe more up-to-date condition as opposed to a house that they could get on a quiet street that's maybe a little bit more or maybe not as affordable. So houses on busy roads sell for less, houses on quiet streets sell for more, so you can get more for your money on a busy street. But if you have a young kid, they might go play out in the street, which
Right.
probably isn't a good thing.
Right. Right.
However, I'm also being careful because a few years ago, Newsday did a big sort of expose on the conscious and unconscious discrimination when it comes to real estate. So for me as a real estate agent to tell someone that they're not going to be happy in a certain house
Yeah.
really would sort of go against that, right? And we have to
Right.
be in this day and age careful on how we answer certain questions. But when it comes to the bones of a house, I'm very upfront with this could be an issue, that could be an issue. I mean, I've closed over 150 transactions in my career,
Mm-hmm.
so I've been to more home inspections than that. And from those home inspections, at every single home inspection, I learned at least one new thing.
Right.
So I'm able to point out a lot of things that could be red flags either currently or down the road.
Sure. Sure.
So from a structural or operational standpoint, I will say, all right, like this is something that you may be biting off more than you can chew, and this house is going to be a liability as opposed to an asset.
Right. Right.
But in terms of um, physical location, a lot of that comes from the client. But again, I guess from an emotional standpoint, when we look at how they're going to use the house, the
Mm.
flow, the floor plan, then yeah, I'll absolutely give some
Yeah.
advice or creative criticism.
I didn't mean to ask you a sticky question there. I'm kind of forgetting about, the regulations of real estate and, some of those discrimination laws that have come up. I'm purely looking at it from the sales perspective. So sorry I put you in a jam there.
That's okay.
But yeah, it's just interesting because, I think the perspective you bring on real estate's pretty interesting. And so that's why that question just came to mind. So, all right, so let's go back to the Beyond 40 mission. And now we're talking about it, I guess, really from a sales perspective and performance and accountability, which to me is, again, one of the key things as to how you're doing business, which I think can be something that everybody listening can learn from and helping them wanting to, win the battle for business. So I saw recently one of your posts, you talked about doing a weekly Friday update as to, where you're at in your goal, how many contracts, so on and so forth. So here's my question then.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you decide to do that? And how is it impacting you so far, your weekly update?
So why did I do that initially? I've had a hard time keeping myself accountable to my own goals when I don't share them with someone. Um, believe it or not, so the going to see a therapist was the catalyst. There's more to my transformation than just that, which I'd love to get into. But to circle back and answer the question, my therapist said, if you're going to set this goal, you need an accountability partner. And I thought, who better to make myself accountable than you?
Right. Wow.
Now, I don't think that I would have had the confidence to do that this time last year.
Real. Oh, so what changed then? What gave you the confidence to do it now?
So as we were speaking before the show, the fact that I achieved my weight loss goals last year, that was like the first big goal I think that I've ever achieved in my life, where I set it out, I worked really hard to do it. I changed my lifestyle, my nutrition, my exercise routine. I've changed my mindset,
Mm-hmm.
and going through that, I think built the confidence to say, you know what, if I did that, I can do this. And I'm now confident putting it out there saying, I'm going to do this. And if I don't, you'll still see how hard I tried to do it.
So yes, when I reached out to invite you on the show, we were just kind of talking and getting a little background, and you talked about and you talk about it. You shared it with me, and of course, you've already shared it, online on social media on Instagram about your weight loss challenges. And there was, again, if people are just seeing you from basically from the waist up, on the show, you look like you're an in shape kind of guy. So there was actually a number that, kind of changed it for you as 199.6. Why was that number so important to you?
So actually I was out with some friends of mine on June 26th, and I know that date. I don't know many dates other than like my birthday, my wife's birthday, my anniversary, and my kids' birthdays.
Right.
But this date, I think, will live with me for the rest of my life. I was out with a few friends June 26th of last year, and I noticed, like, compared to the rest of them, I was pretty heavy. And I was like, do you guys think that I'm over 200 pounds? And they were all like, yeah, absolutely. You're like 220, 225. Da, da, da. I'm like, I've never been over 200 in my life. Like, this is a problem. So the next day, I actually don't keep a scale in my house.
Right.
So I went to Best Buy. I took a scale off the shelf. I put it down. I stepped on it, and I took a picture of it, and it said 199.6. And I texted my friends, and I said, haha, I'm not over 200. And I was like, but I'm pretty freaking close. And that was sort of
you were a Big Mac
like,
you were a Big Mac away from 200 right there. That was
yeah.
So that was a number you never been over. Right, you never had been over 200, and that was a catalyst for you. So all right, so take us through the journey. So it was 199.6. Where are you now? What was the progress?
Right. So, all right. So, yeah, I think this is a good opportunity Feel free to cut me off, steer the conversation. But June 26th, I was 199. Actually, June 27th, 199.6. Said something has to change. Probably a lot of things have to change. I'm also not happy with who I am and how I feel. So August, started seeing a therapist, probably made that decision in July. Took me a couple weeks to find the right person, actually have the confidence to reach out, set the appointment, and started.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then I read the book, The Power of One More by Ed Milet, that honestly mysteriously showed up at my door. I don't know who sent it to me. He was a keynote speaker on an apartment investing conference that I was a part of. I did sort of a recap of that book, or of his presentation actually, after that conference. And then mysteriously, the book shows up on my doorstep. I read the book. That started morning and evening rituals to shift my mindset, and really kind of allowed me to find love for myself. Asking myself the sort of the right questions. What am I most happy about? What am I most grateful for? What am I most proud of? And it also got me to start my day the day before. So I have a consistent bedtime. My wife and the kids are back from their walk. You can hear them. But I started taking warm baths at night and cold showers in the morning. And I think the combination of the two for my mind was something that I like really made a dramatic shift, because the cold shower in the morning is still really challenging, but I'm able to do it every single day. The warm bath in the evening is like giving myself a hug. And the last two questions of my morning sort of goal affirmation process is, who do I love and who loves me? And initially, when I first started asking myself that question, who do I love? It was, I love my wife, I love my children, I love my parents, I love her parents, I love my brothers and sisters and friends and clients and colleagues. It wasn't until 6 weeks until I asked myself, who do I love? And I said me. I'm getting choked up right now just thinking about it.
All right. You're good.
Because it took 6 weeks for me to get there. And I said, like, why wasn't that my first answer?
Wow.
So from that day forward, sort of I had confidence in what I was doing was right. Like how I was treating my body, the nutrition that I was putting into my body was right. The exercise that I was doing, the questions that I was asking, the goals that I was reading, the affirmations, I witnessed changes inside of my own thought processes. And I think that really gave me the confidence to see it through.
So it was the Ed Milet book, right? Was the Power
Milet,
of One?
yep.
Ed Milet, okay.
The
So that
Power
was
of
part
One
of
More.
The Power of One More, okay. So that was part of the catalyst. So as you're sharing the story, the gratitude, the warm bath at the evening, cold shower in the morning, and I do cold showers too. I feel your pain, but those are really, really good. Really,
It's
good
not even the cold shower. It's turning on the water. Like it's the anticipation. It's not the actual thing. It's not the cold water. It's the anticipation. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, exactly. No, but so let me go back to this then. So you said, part of the affirmation, who do I love? My wife, my kids, parents, so on down the line. And then what you just shared, it took me 6 weeks of going through that question before I said I love me. I got chills when you said that, and obviously it got you choked up. So this is why you are an interesting human being. No, I'm being serious right now. I'm being serious. because I'm 53. I just turned 53 in August. So just turned 40, as we discussed. You're 13 years younger than me. And I have, being a business owner, an entrepreneur, sales performance coach, there's one thing I talk a lot about, and it's perception is reality. And I was kind of, the way I was brought up, growing up and even in business, and my early mentors, my early bosses, before I went out on my own, it was perception is reality, and you're always protecting your image. And so, again, not that we're being disingenuous or dishonest or anything like that, but you don't share. You keep a lot bottled in. And so this is why you're a very interesting human being to me, because you're not just sharing this with family and friends. You've related it directly to your business. And that, to me, is something I really want, because I'm benefiting from it personally. I'm not even talking about, seriously, not even talking about the fans, the listeners, right, of the show, because I know if I'm benefiting from it, there's countless others that will, who are in, a similar situation. So here's like a cynical question. So just right now in the show, you were vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gotten negative feedback so far, or are you worried that you might get negative feedback, that it might have a negative impact as to how people perceive you?
I love that question. One of my other virtual mentors, David Meltzer, who's a business coach, theorist, philosopher, sort of my way of viewing the universe and its connectedness is certainly aligned with his, and he's given me a lot of information. One of his phrases is, "I would rather people hate me for who I am than love me for who I'm not."
There you go. Question answered. Repeat that one again.
I would rather people hate me for who I am than love me for who I'm not.
There you go.
So it's be your truest self. And it took me a long time to get there. It took me 40 years to get to this point. So, and it's not something that was ever like in my head. I got it from David Meltzer and some other people that I've really honed in on, aligned with, and listened to. Gary Vee actually is not someone that I maybe necessarily align with. He's a little too in your face for my liking, but he was on an interview once, and his view of how he interprets the world and his ideas is really remarkable. He doesn't take any accountability or responsibility from his genius. He says any thought that is coming through my head has come from either something I read, someone I loved, someone who's taught me something, or just God or the universe channeling an idea through my brain. It is not me at all. He's like, Gary Vee is just a vehicle. All of the information that comes out of his mouth is from another source, and I think that's commendable.
That's a humble statement, especially coming from somebody who is as successful as Gary Vee is. Of course, that's a great quote. All right, so update us. I don't know if you've already shared the numbers. If you have, I apologize. So the Beyond 40 mission, again, you just started in July. Okay, so you're a month or two into it. What are the numbers? And then also, what is your plan and your strategy from the mechanics to make sure you get there July of 2024?
Sure. So we have, to my left, we have to help, or we're going to help at least 34 more clients get into contract. We're counting down. One of my other virtual mentors, who has since passed, Wayne Dyer, says if you focus on what you don't have, you're just going to have more of that. So focus on what you do have. So instead of having this say like, 6 and 2, I have what I'm looking to attract.
Right.
So
love it.
Help at least 34 more clients get into contract and help at least 38 more people. This number actually changed today. We had a closing earlier today. Help at
Nice.
least 38 more people change their lives.
I love it. On the day you're on the Profit Express, we have another closing. That's awesome. That's fantastic.
Yes. So yeah, it's a slow go in the beginning because I sort of just got started. I didn't start from scratch, right? I've been in the business. It'll be 9 years in November, but putting forth this effort was something that I had just recently, honed in on. So the process behind this is sharing updates every Friday to keep me motivated, keep me accountable, and keep me working, keep me focused. What I'm doing is actually doing a lot of door knocking and reaching out to my current sphere and current database through calls, texts, emails, obviously social media, and even direct mail. So really just trying to utilize all of the resources at my disposal and tackle each one of them.
So you're going, obviously social media is a part of it. That's how you and I connected, and you're doing a great job at that. But then also you're going old school door knocking. I like that.
Old school door knocking, yeah.
How? Now, be honest. Do you love it? Hate it? Do you find it effective? What's your experience with door knocking?
So let's see. My experience thus far so prior to beginning this and door knocking for this mission, door knocking for me was not productive at all. It felt like you were doing things, and maybe the universe rewarded me with some transactions because every time I started to door knock, I would do more business, none of which actually came from door knocking. Same with direct mail. I would, pick a community, start mailing them letters, and I would end up doing some more business, but none of it from the mailer. And that was sort of defeating. But actually, I don't know if you've read the book, Atomic Habit.
No, I've not read that. Okay. Yeah.
So I just, I don't know, I stumbled upon it on YouTube, and I watched like the Cliff Notes version of somebody who had read the book and is now telling the story about it. But it's super interesting, and because I have the whiteboard behind it, we're going to do this.
Yeah, do it. I love this.
We have time and results. Okay.
Yep.
Typically, when people start something, they expect direct proportion of their efforts versus time and results, right? You just knock on a few doors, you should get some business. You knock on a few doors, you should get some business. Knock on a few doors, get some business. It doesn't work like that. If you're consistent in your approach, theoretically, you should get 1% better every time you do something. And when you start at 1, the 1% better, 1% better, 1% better, 1% better, 1% better, 1% better, 1% better is a slow go. And in the graph, it's a little bit more even elongated than this.
Sure.
But you don't really start seeing the results comparable to your efforts until pretty far down the line. So they call this, I don't know, like the belly of disappointment or something like that. And that's where I used to give up. That's where most of us really give up.
Yeah.
And so I knew I had to change something about myself to not get lost in the sauce. And I think me accomplishing my weight loss goal, I unknowingly pushed through that because I was motivated and now passionate about health and longevity.
Right.
But now that I recognize this, I'm able to keep myself accountable and consistent with trying to find more people to help through this accountability process.
Wow. Man, this is the first time on the Profit Express. We got a guest going to the whiteboard. We got the dry erase markers coming out. We got charts and graphs. Man, that is awesome. That's a nice bonus right there, Michael. I thank you for that. That is great. That is great.
I didn't know I was going to use it, but always
Hey,
have the marker
listen,
ready.
you have to always be ready. Always be ready. Listen, this has been a great conversation. I feel we could probably keep going for hours. Let me ask you something fun here. Because obviously
Well, make me a
read
promise. Make me a promise. We'll revisit the week after July 4th next year to see how this worked out.
Done. It's done. It's done.
Cool. Awesome.
It's done. Well, I'll be. Don't forget. I'll know where you're at with the Friday updates. I'll be keeping my eye on those, my friend.
Awesome.
So,
well, if you want to connect sooner, let me know.
So, all right. Here's a fun question. Living or dead, if you could have lunch with anybody, who would it be?
Living or dead, if I could have lunch with anyone, who would it be?
Mm-hmm.
I almost want to say Napoleon Hill.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. How many times? Go ahead.
Yeah, the way that just the knowledge that he has.
Yeah.
And the people that he interviewed and his way of viewing the world is, it's almost like if you had lunch with him, you would be having lunch with everyone he knew and all of the things that you know. That's
a great perspective. Actually, my brother, when I first started out in sales, not having my own business, but when I was in sales first, my brother would give me that book. That was one of my first, personal development books that I read. I don't know how many times I've read that one. That was a good one. I like that. Good one. All right. So now that we're on that vein,
I was on the spot. I don't think about that all too often, but that was
that's
a good question.
That's all right. You get good questions here on the Profit Express. So, all right. So here's one more then. What would be? You got somebody who's listening. They're a business owner. They are a salesperson. They are somebody who's new to the world of real estate. Okay. One book recommendation. What do you got?
The Power of Sleep.
Really?
Power of Sleep? No. It's The Power. I'm getting that confused. Hang on. Sleep Smarter.
Sleep
Smarter. That's what it is. Yeah. I was getting The Power of One more confused with Sleep Smarter. Sorry. Sleep Smarter is probably so I've read a few books during this transformational period. That's the one I wish I read first.
Who's the author?
I have it upstairs, but I can bring it up on my phone real quick.
All right, go ahead. The Power of
Sleep Smarter.
Sleep Smarter, right?
Sean Stevenson. 21 essential strategies for better sleep. And the reason why, would you like to know the reason why this is so important?
Yeah.
So I didn't know this. I mean, it makes perfect sense. But when you're awake, you're taking in a lot of information, whether that's, you're something that like a client that you're helping or trying to educate yourself, or you're trying to make yourself stronger, right? You're working out, you're exercising, you're eating well. All of those things make you dumber and weaker. It is sleep that makes you stronger and smarter. When your body is sleeping, it's repairing itself, it's improving itself. And if you are not going to bed, or if I don't go to bed at a consistent time with proper sleep habits, all of my efforts are almost for naught. It doesn't have the impact that you think it should. So getting into the right sleep routine was paramount for me. There's another book that I'm reading. It's one essay a day. It's by Dr. Benjamin Amen, and he's a neuroscientist and also therapist. So he sort of brings those two worlds together. And one of his philosophies is that so the healthier your brain, he works a lot on brain health. The healthier your brain, the better decisions your brain makes. Thereby, the better decisions that you make. So if you treat your brain better, if you treat your brain healthier, you will then make better decisions and more healthier decisions, and you'll be able to be more disciplined. And part of that is getting really good sleep. So
it's funny you say that, because I've also come across a lot, through podcasts, through researchers, on just how I think Andrew Huberman talks a lot about, a lot of them do. I've come across a lot of his stuff on just how powerful sleep is. So interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. And like, going back to what you were saying about like being the male macho sort of like, oh, I'll just work until I pass out. I
Yeah.
don't need a therapist. I don't need this. I don't need that. I'm strong. Which like to just force it. It's not as effective as if I, like, for me at least, I can only speak for myself. That has not been as effective as what I'm doing right now. And in my previous career, it was commercial pool management. We were overseeing accounts from Brooklyn all the way out to Riverhead. I would work from really sun up to sundown, like almost 20 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week. I know what it's like to work hard and work long, and how I feel and how productive I actually wasn't. Like, you think you're productive because you're working so many hours, but then you look at what you got done and you're like, what? Like, it's not even worth it. Why was I working so hard? Why was I working so late? You make dumb mistakes. You do things over and over and over again, trying to get it right. Now, knowing what I know and seeing how I'm operating, yeah, sleep is the first thing I would focus on.
Yeah. Awesome. That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Michael Wright, Real Estate the Right Way. Great conversation, man. Really good conversation.
This was fantastic. I really enjoyed
it. I really appreciate your time today. How can people follow you? I want people to follow you, man. Give them the handle.
Thank you so much. Pretty much everywhere, it's Michael Wright Real Estate. So Instagram, Facebook, website, Michael Wright Real Estate.
Okay. And I'll reiterate the promise, which will be like 10 months from now, roughly, when you're 40 plus homes in, we will celebrate here on the Profit Express the achievement of your Beyond 40 mission. How does that sound?
Cool, man. I love it. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Michael, thanks so much for being on today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. This was fantastic.
You got it. And this is the Profit Express. And remember to tune in each and every Wednesday for shows just like today's show with Michael Wright, and just how important it is in you being honest with who you are personally, professionally, sharing your stories to who you are, holding yourself accountable. I tell you, I'm just, I'm taken back by what Michael Wright has done in his career in real estate, and really what it means for so many of us as we're trying to win that battle for business. So until next time, it's the Profit Express.